In the last video, we looked at the spaces within a set amount of type. In this video, let's zoom out and take a look at the spaces between and around pieces of set type within an overall composition. A piece of typography is both form, a visual element with shape, texture, figure, and ground, and direction, a language and expression of thought with grammar, syntax, and rhythm. As typographers arrange type and space, we have to consider both the way that space affects composition and the way it affects its meaning. We have to train our eyes to see both the space and to read the space. Let's start with the reading part. The spatial principle that most directly affects the meaning of text is the principle of proximity. We tend to read things that are closer together as relating and things that are farther apart as less related. It's unclear how we're supposed to read the second line of this text. 1850 to 1900 is positioned ambiguously halfway between the title and the text. If we nudge it up a bit, we now read it as related to the title. It's a subtitle. So we would read this as an article about typography between the years 1850 and 1900. But if we move the same line down, it's now related to the paragraph below it as a section header. And now we're reading an article about typography in general, and that this first section is about the years between 1850 and 1900. When you're positioning type like this, it's a good idea to use distances that relate to your leading. For example, you may take the distance 2 times the leading and the distance 5 times the leading. It's really difficult to overstate the importance of this kind of attention to detail and spacing, but it's often the difference between clear typography and confusing typography. This timeline of typefaces, for instance, is really confusing because it's not clear what information is related to what. By changing the vertical spacing, we can fix a lot of this problem. Playing around with the horizontal spacing, we can further improve it. And now it's clear, for instance, that both Helvetica and Universe were designed in the year 1957. We also use space, even horizontal or vertical, to signal syntactical divisions in text, like the paragraph breaks. And the traditional way to do this is with an indent. The depth of an indent is often set to one size of the type, or the size of the leading. Indents are often used to mark a division between 2 paragraphs of text. So the first paragraph of a body of text with nothing in front of it, it should not be indented. You can also signal paragraph breaks with a white line or a vertical space between the lettering. But you should never do both a white line and an indent because they both mean the same thing. Zooming out, the same principles of proximity apply to the arrangement of typographical elements in a composition, such as a page's spread. Here, the small paragraph on the left reads as related to the larger one as a note perhaps, or something that's mentioned in the larger paragraph. Here it's positioned farther away, and it reads as less related. In this arrangement of paragraphs, the texts read as a single connected narrative because they are flowing one after another into the next. Whereas here, they look like maybe there are 4 entries for 4 different topics. In these examples, I'm representing type as a series of lines. The old term for this is Greeking, and it's often used in sketching out layouts, but it also helps to switch modes from reading type and seeing it in its abstract form. In this mode, we can apply some of the fundamental principles of formal composition to our layout. We can create contrast, for instance. We can take some type, small, light, and track it out with other type that's large, bold, and tightly tracked. We can consider compositional direction. This composition, for instance, has a horizontal emphasis, whereas this one feels more vertical. And finally, we can consider the relationship between positive space and negative space. Here, the negative space is just a frame surrounding the typography, and it feels kind of static. But here, I've moved things around so that the negative space is more interesting and it's more energetic. As you can see, it's not easy to create typographic compositions that both read well and look good. But it's this challenge that makes composing type really rewarding and interesting.